Behind every undeniable brand are strategies most people never see. Until now. Each week, we're ripping open the playbooks of world-class innovators who've built massive communities from scratch. Real people, real results, real systems you can implement today. I'm Kendall LeJeune, and this is Tribe Tracks. Joining us on the show today is Matt Porcaro. Matt Porcaro is a community-building powerhouse who's turned his passion for real estate investing into a thriving tribe of over 120,000 engaged followers. Through authentic content and genuine connection, Matt has built one of the fastest-growing online communities in the investment space, showing how expertise in any field can be transformed into meaningful digital influence. His story of building the 203K way from zero to a massively engaged community demonstrates the power of serving others with valuable, actionable content. Please welcome Matt Porcaro. Matt, thanks so much for joining us. Super excited to have you on the show. I've been wanting to chat with you for quite some time now, so thanks so much for joining us.
Absolutely, man. Great to be here. Thanks, brother.
Yeah, so I know that our listeners that might not be super familiar with you, I just want to throw that out there that you are a legitimate BA when it comes to real estate investment. And so that's your background. Can you talk to us a little bit about how you started developing your online presence around your real estate investments?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for the intro, by the way. And the first thing I think is the most important thing for me is I've always grown up and been the contrarian with everything I do. So I think like a funny way I would tell the story is if every kid in the neighborhood got a certain bike, I wouldn't want that bike that everyone else has. I'd want like some obscure bike. Or if you ever played video games growing up, you ever remember like playing like Mario Kart or Super Smash Brothers or whatever. Everyone would pick like the same character. They'd all pick Kirby. And I would pick like the really weird character that nobody wanted to play. And I'd always want to figure it out. I've always been that way with everything that I've done. So that getting into real estate for me was no different. All the conventional strategies of getting into real estate investing, flipping houses, wholesaling, apartments, Airbnb, all that stuff never resonated with me. And quite frankly, like I was too dumb to figure any of that stuff out. Lo and behold, like trying for years and years, I found out about this very little known surprise program called the FHA 203K loan. And it's a federally backed program, home buying program. It's for owner occupants, right? So it's for people that are looking to buy and occupy their place. But it gives you all the money to purchase the house and all the money to renovate the house. And all you need to put down is only 3.5%. So for me, living in New York, when I was looking at getting into real estate investing, and houses around here are $500,000, $600,000, $700,000, even for knockdowns, fixer uppers, I was able to basically break into the game with this really little known product program that nobody really talks about, but it just fit the bill. And number one, it was the only thing I could do. I didn't have tons of money when I got started. I didn't have a ton of resources. I was a young kid, just really interested in real estate investing and growing it. Got into real estate using this really weird, I like to call it real estate's best kept secret for beginners program. And essentially to what it is now, I started the 203K way, and I call it that because it was the 203K was the way that I was able to break into the real estate game. Suffice to say, my brand and my whole community and my whole online presence was all because I basically just resonated with other people that were like me, that were struggling to break into the game, trying other different real estate investing strategies, trying to really get their leg up in high cost of living areas like I'm at in New York. And people just heard the same thing, got an inkling about it. They're like, why do more people not talk about it? And I guess I was the chosen one to talk about it because I'm still really the only person that talks about it.
Talk about a blue ocean. I love that.
Yeah, for sure.
So Matt, okay, so walk us through, you figured out this 203K program. You started doing this in your own personal investing. What was it that sort of sparked the idea to, hey, I want to teach more people about this. I want to put this out, because you have a pretty large following at this point on social media. So I want to talk about how you got there and what sort of spurred that interest.
Yeah, so it's a great question, man. As I went through the initial process when I first did it, I quickly realized maybe why people don't talk about it. And because if you don't know what you're doing with it, it's like one of those situations, like with great power comes great responsibility. And it's a wildly powerful product when you actually really unpack it. But at the same time, if you don't know what you're doing, you could definitely get yourself into not trouble. I wouldn't say trouble, but it can get really frustrating, right? There's a lot of things you have to make sure that you do right and processes and everything like that. But even still, as I got through it and I finally finished it, I had put only $9,500 down to buy a 2-family here in New York. That's all I put, not including closing costs, everything. Was able to buy a fixer-upper duplex property for $270,000, and the bank gave me all that money and gave me all the money to completely renovate it, which was another $80,000. So I was all in. My full mortgage was $350,000 all in. I renovated it. I finished the renovation and I reappraised for $480,000 8 months later. So I had built $130,000 of equity in 8 months using this program that nobody talks about. And even through all the BS that I went through and all the trials and tribulations of it, I just stood there. I still remember to this day, it's almost, I'm in my home that I renovated again using a renovation loan right now that we're moving in this week. Almost the same kind of scenario, like the echo in the background, smelling the floors being done, smelling the new paint on the walls. And I vividly remember looking around and being like, why do more people not know about this? It just never made sense to me. I had been studying real estate for years, reading books, watching videos, everything like that. Fast forward, I got into flipping then. It was like the structure because I was able to leverage that equity now. And now I had some experience under my belt. Lenders were talking to me more. Like I was actually taken seriously now that I had something to show for it. But that being said, I would always kind of revert back to this first deal that would work for me. And I think I only did it when I was really 27 years old. And I had a lot of friends asking me about it. Like, how did you do this? Like family members. And like online forums and stuff like Bigger Pockets and Facebook groups. And anytime I'd see anything come up about the 203K, I'd start to explain it to people. It's funny, before we got on this, there was someone that posted all out in a Facebook group and I started talking about it. Fast forward, I was doing that. I was getting tons of people sending me DMs, asking me questions about it. And I was just realizing there's obviously a need for this, right? There's more people like me that, again, were clueless about it that need some help. It's really funny. I was constantly, it was like another night where I was just getting like a bunch of messages on forums and stuff. And I remember sitting next to my wife. We were on the couch and I was later at night and I just look over to her and I'm like, hey, do you think if I like created an Instagram account based on this 203K thing that, that anyone would watch? Do you think it would be like worth it or anyone would watch it? And she's like, nope, but do it anyway. And that's my wife in a nutshell. Like she's awesome in that regard. Like she's such a action taker. I'm like the analysis paralysis engineer. She's the doer. Fast forward, man, I just started posting about it every day. I just made a commitment. I'm like, I'm just going to post everything that I wish I knew about it. And it organically grew into, now I'm at like, I don't know, 80 something thousand followers now and YouTube channel and everything like that. People took a liking to it. And it was just a cool thing, of a perfect example of like, when there's a need in the market, it'll reveal itself to you. I think one of the things I learned earlier in my career in business and stuff like that, I had worked for, quick little side story, and obviously I want you to keep asking questions, right? This is your show.
No, yeah.
But the whole thing is, what was funny about it was, I think this is a really big lesson and something that I was lucky to learn very early on. I worked as an engineer in New York City for years. I wasn't a great one, but I got by the skin of my teeth. And I always knew I wanted to get out of it and was always looking for a way out. That was a good job, but I don't know, something about it. It just wasn't for me. Fast forward, there was a company that reached out to me and it was like a cool, new, sexy real estate tech company. And they were looking for a guy that had some sales experience, but then also had experience in design and rendering and stuff like that. So I checked off every box. It was super new and exciting. I was going to do these virtual reality showings for multi-million-dollar penthouses in New York City. It was like really cool. Sounded really awesome. Joined the company, start working with them, start going on all these presentations and doing all these things. And the first question that all these people kept on asking me is, do you have any case studies? Who have you done this with before? Who have you worked with? And it was funny because I'm spending months and months with this company and they're not really paying me much because it's commission based, but it was super exciting. It was super sexy. Again, had all the bells and whistles. I had the business card. I had the shirts. I had the cool, like virtual reality glasses and all these cool things. And I went and I asked the owner of the company, I'm like, hey, can you give me some case study? What have you done this with a business before? And it was able to get them to sell the condo faster or sell the penthouse faster, or what was the ROI on it? And we haven't really done it yet. I'm like, that's a problem. I'm like, you have to either do it for someone and they were also like, they also had the boldness to charge an exorbitant amount of money for this stuff when they would write proposals. It's like hundreds of thousands of dollars, literally. So I learned very quickly the importance of knowing you have a market before going to market. And that's a huge thing that I always talk about, even with real estate investing and everything like that. Know who your buyer is, know what the ARV is, know that there's a demand for what you're trying to do before you go and attack it. Because the worst thing you could do is, a perfect example is over renovating a house. If you're in a market that only is good for builder grade quality and you go all and when you get top level everything and your equity doesn't support it, it's going to fall out. So it's a great business thing that I learned very early on, luckily. And with the 203K way and this whole thing, it was really just like the market told me that they needed it. And I was happy to be that person to give it to them.
Yeah, that's such a good lesson. I see a lot of people, I've fallen into this trap as an entrepreneur where you're dreaming and you're excited about all the things that you can do. It's really easy to just think about an idea and be like, oh, that's such a cool idea, I'm just going to create it, versus do people really need this? Is this something that actually fits a need in the market? So that's a really good point. So you started putting out content when you first started. You opened up your Instagram, you took your wife's advice, started your Instagram. What did those very first stages look like? What were you putting out? What did your content look like?
I love it. Gary Vee was really pivotal for me in this early on, as when anyone watching or listening doesn't know Gary Vee, living under a rock, but you should go check him out. But this was when he was also like really up and coming. This is back like 2018. This is when he was really hitting his stride and everything, and preaching content. It's just so funny. Like, he was so ahead of his time with that, because now everyone's really preaching it, but he was preaching it before he was preaching it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Before other people were. And he called it something, I don't want to butcher it. I think it was like the $1.80 strategy or something. Mm-hmm. And it was something about leaving your 10 cents. That was like the idea behind it. Like leaving your 10 cents on other people's posts or other people's posts or groups or whatever. And leaving like just thoughtful, real comments on people that are interested in what you were doing. So that's what I was already doing. But I took to Instagram and basically went in there and started looking at maybe hashtags that were talking about house hacking or 203K loans or renovations or anything like that. And like looking at people and following people that were doing that. And then looking in the comments, especially on like a lot of the big accounts, looking on the comments and going in and answering all the questions to all the comments and answering them wholeheartedly and giving away. They're not holding anything back. And that was this, I think he called it $1.80 because it was like, you do it like for 2 different hashtags, like twice a day, or there was some reason it added up to 180 cents somehow.
Yeah.
But that's in the beginning. That's what people like. I never bought a follower. I never paid for a shout out. I've never done any of that. Like everything I've hit has been completely organic since day one. And I think a big thing of that is just knowing that I could be consistent with it. It's funny looking back with the content thing, people ask me all the time because I built this following over the last couple of years. They're like, how did you do it? I'm like, it wasn't overnight, obviously, because now we're 7 years later. It doesn't even feel like that. But I literally just posted at least every day. Again, some missing here and there, but like for the most part, I posted every single day. And in the beginning, I was posting multiple times a day, right? Because I was just trying to get that initial momentum. But once that momentum starts, and it's a grind in the beginning because you really don't do it. So you have to have the passion behind it there, like in the beginning, and trust the process. But it was real. I will say it is really exciting once you start to get some of those comments that really hit, or one of those posts that really hit, because it's cool to see social media do its thing and see its power and it's like all its unrivaled glory. And that's what it was. It was just a lot of dedication and repetition. It's funny though, because I started it on Instagram, and Instagram is still like my biggest following. But if I could go back in time, people ask if you could go back and do it again, what would you like? Would you do anything differently? And I say I would do YouTube, but I also am lying to myself because I know that I wouldn't have been able to stick with YouTube as much with Instagram. The reason I picked Instagram was because I knew that I would post. I was already spending a ton of time on Instagram anyway. So my whole understanding of it is if I'm spending all this time scrolling mindlessly and looking at stupid videos all day, at least if I could take 10 minutes of that and make a post, then at least like I could justify like me doing that. And that was like my mindset behind it. So I think a big key point with that for me was like, I was trying to anchor it to something I was already doing, because I knew if I didn't anchor it to something that I was already doing, that it wouldn't have happened. YouTube was not something I was already doing. Of course I watched the YouTube videos, but I wasn't already like filming content and like setting up a camera and setting up stuff and I just knew I could easily post on Instagram, and YouTube was going to be a little tougher. So I didn't stick with that. But
yeah, that's so good. James Clear talks about that in his book Atomic Habits, is like when you're starting a new habit, it needs to be something that's closely related to what you're already doing. So it's like trying to start a new diet. Don't throw out all of your favorite foods and only eat foods that like you've never eaten before. Like you have to have something that you stick with. So that makes total sense. So Matt, let me ask you this. In terms of content creation, right? So like I've talked with lots of real estate investors that have digital presences, and some of what we do is like not super sexy, or it's not easily capturable on like in content, or it's not like there's not a huge entertainment factor when it comes to like how you can package it from a content standpoint. So how do you approach content?
It's a great question. And I'll be honest, I'm always learning. Like here's what I'll say. And I've been doing this long enough where I think I can have an opinion on it, because there's a lot of people out there that think they've got it figured out. What I can tell you is I've seen a lot of these, let's call them content gurus, come and go. And what I can tell you is the second that you feel like you have it figured out, it changes. Yeah. And it's more than ever now. It used to be like something would work for years. Now stuff works for like months, maybe even weeks. So it always changes. So what I would say is just being open to change. I think like when you look at businesses, especially in the last couple decades, as technology is just like gone so much faster, AI, all this stuff, it's like if you resist change in this world that we live in now, like you are so dead in the water. Like everything's changing so fast, and anything and everything's changing, right? The way we take payments, the way we post content, the way that AI works, the way that businesses handle businesses. Like websites aren't really a thing anymore. Remember back in the day, like everyone was like, you need a website. Like,
yeah.
Nobody checks your website. They check your Instagram. They check your social media. They check. And again, that might change in 5 years from now. We don't know what it's going to be. But I think one of the things I always wanted to just stay ahead of the curve and look at what the market's doing and who the people are, especially like the new people, the new trailblazers. Because what you'll find too, so it's a great question, Kendall. If you look back, if I look at like the people that have the most staying power, like the biggest people, like, how do I frame this? Like the biggest figureheads in the space, like they don't have the sexiest, newest content, but they've been around the longest. So like on the flip side, you have people that are really hot and new, but they might be flash in the pans. Like you see them for a little while and then they're gone. So what I like to do is have a little happy medium of both, and also not get mad when I realize that like people like, we could go deep on this, but like one of the things I think is really important. I thought about this always, like I was really big into like electronic music and everything, especially like when it really started back in the early like 2010s and stuff like that. And I saw this with DJs. I saw this with like, I was involved in it, in the promotion side of things. I had a lot of friends that were DJs. I DJed and stuff like that. And one thing I realized very quickly was the quicker someone came on the scene, the quicker they came off, versus the OGs, right? Like your Tiestos, your David Guettas, these huge names. They would span the test of time. They would forget forever. So maybe they wouldn't have the top hit when they wouldn't have some stuff, but they would always be like hanging out, and they would always have a ton of following and a devout following and everything like that. I think the same is to say in like the social media world and stuff like that, is that this is such a long game, and not to get twisted. I think what a lot of people get hell bent on is like going viral and likes and comments and stuff like that. What I can tell you is like when you build a big follower base, there are so many people that are not liking, not commenting. My wife is a perfect example. She follows a tons of things. She never at once commented on anything outside of like a family's photo or something like that. She does not comment. She does not like a single thing. She doesn't like anything. But she spends time on there, right? And it's just because it's not being liked and shared and everything like that doesn't mean that there's not a ton of eyeballs on it. So staying consistent with it and trying to, like you said, like what's sexy and what's not. I think just staying true to like whatever it is that you do. There are people watching, and as time goes on, like you're going to see the hot, sexy stuff and definitely sprinkle that in. Like I've found like recently, like the super edited stuff, like just doesn't work anymore. My best performing videos are when I just grab my phone, say it, add the captions on Instagram and post it. And like those will pop off. But if I do anything additional and tweak it, or I start sending it to a video team and an editing team, those flop. So it's just, you just seeing what's happening in the moment, but then also always just staying true to your vision and whatever you're promoting. And again, it's not the sexiest thing in the world, but leave that to Kylie Jenner and Kendall Jenner, right? Like making that's what's going to get millions of views. I will never get millions of views. I am not that good looking. I am not that exciting. But that's not my goal. I just want to connect with the right people.
Yeah, I think that's such a big point, is like connecting with the right people. I've talked to many different people who have they make 7 figures and their following is like 5,000 people on Instagram.
Oh yeah.
Right? It's the right people. So can you talk a little bit about, just kind of zooming out a little bit, now that you have started informally teaching on Instagram, how did that turn into a full-fledged education program where you're implementing a business model where you're charging for this and that type of thing? What was that like?
Yeah, again, just all organic. It was that was the cool thing. Like I knew going into it, like I knew that something cool could come out of it. Like I knew I would be able to network with people. I knew I would be able to like hopefully help people with this and everything like that. Obviously I had gotten training and stuff before with other stuff, and all I knew is that if the opportunity did come, I would try to do it differently and do it in a way that is a reflection of, because to be fair, right, there's just so many people that are like not cool with the whole guru courses and scams and all this stuff. I was like, I never want to be looped into that. I'll never I'm not that person. I will never take $1 and get rid of like my integrity for that. But you're always up against that. And like, how do you provide and still do everything you want and grow and scale and everything like that? In the early stages, it was really just, I'd literally have people just ask. Like I'd have people reach out and be like, hey, do you have a course? Do you have it? I'm like, no, like I don't, but I'm like, what would you be interested in? And I really just like started doing some market research, and I like literally took surveys. I did a Google form survey and did, what do you need the most help with? What are the sticking points? What would you like to see? What do you want? If I could create something, what would that look like? And I remember I was very blown away. There was like a lot of people. I think I was just honest. I was like, hey, if I create something, what would you want it to look like? And I did that. And I basically I was blown away and this is back when I didn't have many followers at all. And maybe a couple thousand max. Sent it out there and had a bunch of people like answer wholeheartedly and what they wanted. And again, it's almost like circling back to what we just started this podcast with. It was like, I wanted to make sure that there was a market for it and what the market wanted before I actually started doing it. I think this is where a lot of people mess this up too, is like with an education or building a course. Definitely do not build a course until you've sell the course before you build the course, because your clients, the people that are working with you, are going to help you build the course. Because what I found is like, there's stuff that people need to know, but typically that's not the stuff they want to know. Right. So if you frame it with all the stuff they need to know, no one's going to be interested in buying it, to be quite frank. Yeah. Because the reality is that it's not sexy to them. It's not cool to them. You basically have to see what they want and show them that you're going to give them what they want. And then in the process of giving them what they want, sprinkle in what they need in between to make sure that they actually get the value out of it. So that's really the way it happened, Kendall. I started just asking them. I created like a little bit of like a masterclass thing that did okay. And then I really started going more into really helping people a little more hands-on. And when I started getting a little more hands-on, that's when I started really learning truly how things work. And once I started getting obviously them results, then I was like, okay, this works, this doesn't work. And it's just been an iteration since then. It's always getting better. That's one of the cool things too. And this is probably something that like a lot of people that sell coaching or any type of program or education out there won't say, But I always say it. And it's, yeah, there's a benefit to me coaching, obviously financially, but also the other benefit is to you. The more people I bring in, the more walks of life I bring in, the more opportunities I see. My structure is very different because it really gears towards first time home buyers. And it really is, I wouldn't call it it's not a one and done by any means, but it's a stake in the ground to get started. So I'm like really just accelerating people into the game. I don't do it myself over and over and over again. However, I'm doing what agents and lenders are supposed to be doing for their clients for them instead. And what I get by that is learning through their experiences, being very hands-on with them, issues they ran into, problems that they accomplished that we worked through together, right? So the more people that I get to work with and the more people I bring in, not only builds the business, builds the brand, everything like that, but most importantly for me and for them, it gets me better at coaching it and teaching it and showing them and seeing what strategies are working real time with these people and what's not working real time with these people, and being able to stay in the game while I'm doing more of like a real estate investing thing. I'm not doing so much the 203K loan, but I'm so involved in the process with the lenders and the agents and the contractors and stuff like that. So I'm seeing it holistically from the top and being able to help people a lot better that way.
Yeah, that's brilliant. The more people that are in that community and all of these different experiences and challenges, it only makes the program better.
It becomes its own knowledge base. Yeah. And the community helps each other. I tell people all the time, I do not want to be like, one of my biggest things I'm up against is, like you said, it's a major blue ocean. It's like such a blue ocean. I'm literally like out in the middle of nowhere. It's 800 feet water and there's no boats around. So I'm like really just trying, I'm like, it's really cool out here, but no one's around to hear me type of thing. So because of that, like if I could bring more people in this ocean and expand my reach a little bit, that's the benefit to this vision and getting more people that succeed with this. Like I'm only one person. I do not want to be the only person talking about this. I want other people to be shepherds of it because I truly believe that more people need to know about it. And if it's just me, it's never going to get out to enough people. If it's a couple more than me, it'll get out to way more people, right? It's like the butterfly effect. So that's been the goal too, is just to like, especially when you're working on something that you're passionate, you have a bigger vision than yourself for. And especially in my case, it's like awareness. For something like awareness, the more people that I can get indoctrinated into this and understand it wholeheartedly, the better that the vision will be able to spread. I'm only one person. I have a big following, but 82,000 people is a pin needle of the amount of population we have here in the US. So I want to do more with that.
Yeah, I love that. Let's talk about expanding reach, because you mentioned the B word, the brand word, and I'd love to talk a little bit more about, at what point in your journey did you think about, okay, now I'm going to be intentional about the brand? You mentioned the 203K way, you named that a specific way, it had some intention behind that. How did that look from a development standpoint in terms of developing your brand?
So it's funny because the 203K way is the name that I picked, and I love it and I hate it at the same time. And the reason why is because, so when I first started, I thought the 203K way was a really clever name. And coming from someone that does not have a creative bone in his entire body, again, the engineer, the super pragmatic person, also married to an extremely pragmatic healthcare worker. Like we collectively have, building our house has been, the hardest part has been like picking finishes and making decisions because we have no eye for it. So when you give me a creative opportunity, I'm always going to blunder it. So the 203K way I really thought was like, it was catchy, it sounded cool, and I ran with it. And it has a cool message behind it and it makes sense, everything like that. At the same time, as I am getting to this part of awareness, right? And we talk about brand and we talk about awareness. What I find is it is not a good name for awareness, in the sense that people still to this day, I was having a conversation with someone earlier and they call it like a 201K loan or a 401K loan or the 20, like it's an unnecessary kind of like set of letters and numbers that make it too complicated. The other thing is when you say a 203K way to someone on the street, they have no clue what you represent. Right. Now, mind you, Nike, in the beginning, no one knew what Nike meant either. But like in my case, when I'm trying to do something like that, I find it to be a hindrance more than not these days. What I'll flip on that is this. What I've learned especially recently, and one of my mentors told me this. He told me when I was growing this, he's, listen, you're the 203K way now, but in 10 years from now, you're going to be Matt Porcaro. And that instilled, which I'm sure a lot of people talk about, I'm sure you're well aware, is the importance of your personal brand, right? Because your personal brand is what stays with you no matter what. And if you build a good version of that, no matter what business you go into, obviously a very extreme example, but Alex Hormozy, right? He's built multiple businesses, right? But people know Alex Hormozy. They don't know Jim Launch. They might know Jim Launch if you've been following him a long time, but they know Alex Hormozy. Right? You have like other people in the space, the same thing. You have Cody Sperber, and he was the clever investor. Great name, great brand. If you watched him over the years, he actually got away from that brand. He like changed his whole, he had a whole like play to get off that brand and get into his personal brand. Especially if you're ever looking at exiting or anything like that, if you're attached to a brand and you only live and die by the brand, that you don't have the ability to go off and do other things. That being said, I have a love-hate relationship with the 203K way. It will never go away. It's always going to be my baby, and I will never like rebrand to something else. However, I would entertain, and I have been toying with like kind of other brands that I'd be implementing to maybe hopefully reach a bigger audience. The 203K way will always stay there in the effort to maybe go a little wider, be able to bring that brand into it as well is something that I've been toying with. But what I always think about is my personal brand down at the bottom line, right? I always just think about me and my name and what I can do to make sure that is the best version it can be. And again, integrity, number one. Like there's no amount of money that you could give me that will make me go against my morals or my values or anything like that. And I want to stick with that because again, I do know that I am at a point now where people know me. If I start burning bridges, that doesn't make well for anybody. That's the other thing that comes with when you have a brand and you have a big following, is that if you start not doing the right thing, it could travel like crazy. I still to this day don't understand why people do it, but people do it. People are people. So when you do build that, just know that like in the background, your personal brand ultimately is the most valuable thing. Because if that's tarnished, then good luck developing any brand after that.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It takes years to build and seconds to destroy.
Yep, literally.
So for entrepreneurs that are listening to this and they're like, I have a business, but I don't have a presence on social media or online. Maybe there's a website, but what would you say to those people in terms of the advice that you would give them around building a personal brand? Why is that important? You did mention earlier about how that will be with you always, and you can transition in and out of different businesses and different brands. But what types of opportunities have you seen it bring to you in having that personal brand?
Oof, man, my life has forever been transformed positively in every way, shape, and form since having an online presence. The people I've met, us doing this right now is a reflection of me having a brand, right? Meeting amazing friends over the years, mentorships, events I've been able to go to, real estate deals I've been able to get thrown my way, in rooms that I never even dreamed I would be in, is all because of that brand. So with someone starting out, all I can tell you is that what I see with branding is, or when you're doing this and you have social media presence and everything like that, when you begin creating, you're typically creating with some type of like acute goal, right? You're looking, if you're a real estate agent, you want to post on social media, it's because you want more listings, right? And that's great. But what I'll tell you is that the fringe benefits are better. The fringe benefits are way better than the business. Obviously, I do a lot of business through social media, the main driver of my business, but it also has been the main driver of me building long-lasting relationships with people, being put in the right rooms with people, growing myself, not only in business, but in health, in wealth, in real estate, in family stuff. There's just so many fringe benefits of it. Like I can make a post on my social media asking for anything and be able to find it. Who has a good doctor in Salt Lake City? And like, I have so many people, like I have this crazy amazing network that I can tap into at any time. And for whether it be raising capital, looking for partners in a business, anything, like, the world is your oyster when you have a good following like that. And that's why when people start it, they want to do it just for business, but just know that it is absolutely like an investment account that you have to think about. You're just slowly but surely putting into that investment account, and that an investment account, or like a 401k or an IRA or something like that, will compound over time. And you will, in many cases, here, I'm doing this for 7 years now. I don't even think I'm anywhere near where I could be. But again, the stuff that's come out of it has been super life-changing in every way, shape, and form. And it's usually, obviously, on the business side, but the more exciting stuff is being able to talk with people, have conversations, have people in my phone book now that never, when I first started in real estate, like, I looked up to these people like they were like celebrities, like they were like Derek Jeter. My friends liked sports people. I would looked up to like business people, and they're people I chat with constantly. It's crazy, and that it's such a really cool thing to connect with people on that level.
I love that. Yeah. And that's the stuff that's hard to quantify or say, this was my return on investment in building a personal brand. It's very different from like marketing to get more leads or more deals. Right. It's not as concrete or quantitative.
Yeah. Organic is a slow burn, but it's something that you can always fall back on. Like you said, like marketing, if you do a direct response type marketing, like direct ads or something like that, you could typically, of course, there's some attrition time with that too, but for the most part, like, you can put dollars in and know what dollars you're getting out relatively quickly, especially e-commerce or something like that. But on the flip side with organic, you can't. And on the flip side too with business, it does make business tricky sometimes. Like, I am 100% organic. My business is 100% organic, and there's a lot of inconsistencies with it. Not to say that I don't have interest in running ads, like I do. I just had one way of doing it for a long time. So it always comes with pluses and minuses in any world. Obviously, you want to have a well-rounded thing, but if you go into organic and branding and content in the sense of just knowing that you are literally depositing $1 into your bank account every day, and just know that every day it's not going to look like much, but when you look back 10 years later, you're going to be like, wow, this is really something. You go into it with that mentality, and you will benefit from it. How you benefit from it could be a multitude of different ways. That's what's really cool about it. It's really hard to convey to someone, though, that's like trying to like, how do I pay my bills this month? It's like hard to justify it for people. They're going to look for like, how can I get the quickest cash? But if you go into it knowing, listen, it might not come immediately, but it'll come sooner than you think.
1,000%. And also, I've had conversations with entrepreneurs that are very like black and white, numbers minded. It's like trying to explain the value of a personal brand when you can't translate that into dollars and cents in terms of like return on ad spend or something like that. It's so difficult for some people to grasp. But I'm like, how can you miss this? But I think you said it perfectly just now. There's so many different opportunities, the way that they manifest. So that's really cool. So what I love so much about your story, and what resonates with me so much about it, is the organic methods in which you've grown, right? It seems like a lot of the different evolution steps that you've taken has been like in response to a need that someone had, or hey, can you teach me how to do this? And now we have a coaching program. So can you talk about at what point in your journey did that switch flip and you said, okay, now I need to be intentional about actually growing the brand?
Great question, man. This is a deep one, man. This started, so to be clear, like, I had a 9-to-5 job from leaving college, right? I always wanted to leave it, just couldn't really break away. Obviously, getting into real estate investing and just building cash income streams and cash flow from properties and stuff like that. And it was just living in New York, which is really like never truly enough. And got to a point where I really had to have a come to Jesus moment on, okay, where's my focus going to be? What am I passionate about? What do I want to do? And the thing, when I was ending my corporate career and I knew that I was on the out, I was just thinking, if I put everything in a vacuum and look at like my corporate career by itself, and then look at like my investing career and my coaching career and the 203K education business and everything like that, the lending side of things that I'm partnered on, it's where does this go in what direction? And like, how do I, like, what does up look like in either one? And in the corporate world, up looked horrible. Like I looked at the people above me. No offense to anyone there. I loved where I worked and who I worked with. I worked for a great company, you know, Fortune 50 company, amazing company, great people. But I looked at the upstream and I'm like, number one, I'll never get there because I'm not that type of person. But even if I did, I don't want to be that person. So that never made sense. And I was like, okay, let's just take that. So I'm not going that route anymore. I've beat that horse to death. I tried to escape it a couple of times. So it's okay. How do I make this work in this world? So really where it came down to it is I realized something very later in my real estate game is that cash flow, this is a whole nother topic for another day, but in my opinion, cash flow won't make you rich. Okay. Cash flow can get you places. It can help you get out of maybe a job you don't like, but cash flow, you need to hold on to it. You need to reinvest it. You need to be ready for the next thing that's going to happen. That cash flow isn't really always going to be it can cover your living expenses, sure, but it's a nest egg that it also needs to be utilized in your properties and in your assets. That cash flow is important. It needs to be fed. It needs to be nurtured, everything like that. It's not just get a bunch of rental properties, sit on the beach and drink Mai Tais. Maybe yes, later in life, but I'm still young. I'm still hustling. So it's okay, where does you have to have active income too, but where do I get active income that's going to accentuate what I'm already doing? And again, that's where the branding and everything else came in. But because of the brand that I built and everything like that, I've not only had the education business, but I've also been able to tap into the other aspects of the business in which the 203K and my whole brand accentuates. Partnering with agents, partnering with lenders, doing lead generation for them, investing in other companies that buddies of mine have that do other lead generation stuff. So now I'm not working against myself in my 9 to 5. I'm working in something that's building and growing, but I'm also doing business within itself. So I'm sure maybe you've seen this. I know we're in some masterminds together and stuff like that. And you see the people that have big investment portfolios, but they all have, the thing I noticed is everyone has active income businesses as well. You have real estate investors, but they own brokerages, or they're lending partners, or they have hard money firms, or they property management, or all if you're in the Airbnb space, you are doing Airbnb rental properties. I have a buddy of mine, he does Airbnb specific pool servicing. You're still getting active income. So for me, as I went through this and got to the point of where do I grow this? It's when I had that come to Jesus moment, I was okay, how do I specifically grow this so that not only am I going to be able to scale this in the education business, but how can I also implement these vehicles and things that I have in it already that are going to be able to bring other activity? I don't want it to be strictly coaching. I don't that's not the main drive. That can't be the main driver of revenue. There has to be other revenue models off of it. But again, having a big brand, having a big presence, and realizing that I'm basically creating my own economies and seeing where you can partner and where you can scale horizontally has been really game changing for me. So when I took that leap, that was about the same time when I partnered with a lending company, and I had always had trouble finding good lenders that do the type of loans that I do. But thankfully, as luck would have it, divine intervention, God, whatever you want to call it, put the right things in the right time while I was having these conversations in my head, and was able to partner with a really great lending partner, and they're a full-fledged mortgage bank. They do the loans that I do. So not only do I bring them a ton of business, I'm also able to make sure that my clients are getting taken care of because they're dealt with the right people. That leads into more realtor relationships and whole realtor things. I'm doing continuing education for real estate agents, continuing education for lenders. Now that's a whole other business model that also incorporates my vision in my nest egg, which is the 203K way, which is the fun thing that I really am passionate about. So it's I created my own economy with it. And that was, I think, the big turning point for me is if I'm going to grow this, I have to create a whole ecosystem around it. I can't just be just sell coaching. That was never the intention. I never wanted it to be like that. Right.
Yeah. I think the way that you said you're creating your own economies within an ecosystem, I think that really speaks to the power of a personal brand as it relates to the financial side of things, right? Yeah. There's so many opportunities to partner and collaborate and connect with what you do, which that is exponentially and it's incredible from what you can. There's no limit,
right?
There's no limit to that. So that's really cool. I love that. especially dealing with like synergies and working with cool people.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
it's the best.
There's nothing cooler than making money. The only thing cooler than making money is making money with friends and making money with people you like to do business with.
Yeah,
In the corporate world, again, there was nothing I didn't like about them. But like on the same token, it was like they weren't people that I was going to be friends with outside of work. But in a corporate environment, you're forced to work with them, right?
Yeah.
So you're forced to work with them, and they're great people and they're nice people. But to be honest, I don't want to talk to you and whatever you did this weekend and whatever. It's not. We're just not. We wouldn't be friends outside of here. There's nothing wrong with that. Absolutely not.
Sure.
But when you do this, like you can choose who you do business with. And it's really cool that you could choose to, like, I did a cool podcast last night with a couple of great guys. And they're just people like, you just hit it off and you're like, okay, how are we going to start now to do business together? What synergies do we have? And it's not just in the name, like it's never in the name of just money. Any relationship that's just for money is never going to work out. But when you do it, it's like, hey, we vibe, we have the same vision, we have the same values. And then you have the opportunity to work to that. Like you don't have that opportunity in a 9-to-5 world or a corporate world, right? Like corporate world, you have no opportunity to work with who you want to work with. It's all so big and bloated and everything's been set for you. But when you're small and you have your own business, like it's really fun to do that. Make money with your friends and people that you would otherwise still be hanging out with and having dinner with. And that's it.
Yeah, that's absolutely incredible. You said earlier that you're not like a creative type, but I think that doing what you just described, like creating opportunities and like finding synergies and it's creation. Yeah, money is the byproduct, but you're creating on a higher level.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, I'm a visionary through and through, like to a T. Like my head's in the absolute cloud. It's even above the clouds. It's in the stratosphere.
I love it.
But to your point, I think that's a great point, and thank you for bringing that up. Yes, I feel like if one of my superpowers has always been like being I feel like I'm really good at connecting people. Like I'm a really good like empath and understanding people and like who fits what. And I'm like, I know this sounds arrogant to say, but I felt like I've always been a really good judge of character. Like I could read people pretty quick. Not in a bad way or a good way. Like I don't judge people, but I could read people and I could usually know in many cases, like a lot of things that happens for me is like, hey, this is someone who I think you should meet. And I'll just like make the connection and let them do it. From there, I don't want anything to do with it. I would just want to know that I'm happy knowing that there was 2 people that I knew could probably benefit, and introducing them would be good for them. So I've always been that. And I guess that's a type of creativity, right? If you think about it.
Totally. Yeah. I love that. That's incredible. Yeah. I'm a textbook visionary too. So like you're speaking my language. I know exactly what you mean by that. So I want to dive into a little bit more about how your passion directs your overall personal brand, because I listened to this and it's you're like, yes, you said you're passionate about the 203K way and all that good stuff, but what's the bigger passion? What is that? What drives you? If you had to say this is a level above real estate or business or whatever it is, what is that?
I do a lot of digging on this because as all entrepreneurs know and visionaries know, it's a hard question for us, right? It's not. We're always chasing, and what's the why? And at first value, and I always ask people that I work with, and what's your why? Because money is not a why. Money is that. If you tell me like, 'cause I want to buy a Lamborghini, you're not cut out for this. This isn't right. It's not the type of thing. What is the reason? So we go back and like a great way to just from a psychological standpoint is when you ask yourself why, you say money and then ask why again, right? Yeah. Why money? And for me, I'm not saying it's for money, but you asked, okay. But for me, it was freedom initially. If I could have my own ecosystem where I don't have to depend on a ball, like I don't fit well. And I did well in the sense that I wasn't a bad employee by any means, but like I could talk the talk and walk the walk, but I just felt it just didn't feel right. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So what can I do where I feel right and I enjoy what I do and make money with it and still get the life that I'm looking for, which is, again, money. Sure, money will give me the opportunity to go on vacation with my family and do this and do that. But again, I went deeper on the why, and I get back to, okay, why? Because more money or more resources mean more freedom. Okay, what is freedom? Go a one deeper. Like, why freedom? What's freedom? And I think back to it, and I'm like, because what I grew up with was that money was the root of all good and bad. It was like, people say it's the money of all was the root of all evil, but when you grow up in an environment where it's also like money is the best, like every talk about, my dad would be like, oh, this guy's got a lot of money, or he's got a lot of money. It's like you putting them on a pedestal, right? So when you're a young kid, that becomes really, you're like, oh, money's really good for, we're not those people, but there's people out there that have money and they got it all figured out. They're good. Which as I get older, I realize that's not right either.
Sure.
So I think it's really important to continually ask yourself why. And like, when you picture what is your perfect day, what are you actually looking to achieve? Because the reality is the vision behind everything is good, but the stuff that sucks is, I'm dealing with it now, like just tech stuff. And that's the stuff that drives you nuts. I enjoy helping people. That's definitely one of my big whys. Like, people that like, I've had people that like ask me like, hey, I want to start coaching. I'm like, okay, why? They're like, what's good money? I'm like, no, but okay, why? And they're like, because I think there's a big profit margin. I'm like, there may be, but remember, you now have to deliver on this. And now you now have that onus on delivering on people's results to help them be better. And if you can't deliver on that, and you don't have a passion to deliver on that, coaching is not just like talk to people and tell them what they want to hear. No, you're like, I like lose sleep over people that I work with that I know are losing a deal or something like that. If I know about that, I own it. I wear it, and probably to a fault. But the whole idea is that I'm passionate about these people. You have to care. If you don't care, do not get into this game. Like, it is, I tell Penny, if you get into it for money, you're never going to last, because you're never going to. I just really enjoy helping people. Prior to this, I used to coach like CrossFit and fitness classes, and I did it not because I did or I just wanted to try it. And I really actually found myself really enjoying like coaching fitness classes. Like, I'm not a big fitness person. I never thought that was a direction but it's always been a very important part of my life for sure. But it was like, I found I really enjoy helping people and seeing the smile on their face when something clicks. So I'm passionate about that. I'm passionate about helping people. I've always been. And I think last but not least, a really key point, because I was at an event and they like talked about this. It was a mindset thing. They're like, go even deeper. What would you do? What would you do with your time? You had your bills paid for. What would you do? And it was like, so simple, man. I was like, dude, I would go to breakfast with my kids and go on vacation when I want. And it's like, that stuff's cool. And I don't take that for granted, because now I have the opportunity to do that. I don't need boatloads of money for anything crazy. Sure, we all like the finer things in life, but really what I want is going to have breakfast with my wife and my two kids on a Tuesday morning, because they like wanted to go out for breakfast. We just did it. We do it a lot. But like going out to dinner, going out for lunch, going in and having to run. If we have to run to Costco, we all go and run to Costco in the middle of the day. Like, just having the freedom to do what you want when you want. But also, that sounds like even so much bigger, but it's like something as simple as, again, going in and having lunch with your family, like when you want to. That's really what I want. I don't like all this other stuff is just noise. I just want to be able to spend time with the people I love. That's it.
Yeah, that is so good. That is so good. So let me ask you, Matt, when you look into like the time horizon of 10 years from now, we've been talking about personal brand and that type of thing. What vision do you have? Like, what's your next iteration for the Matt Porcaro brand?
Man, I think it's hard for me to look really far ahead too, because I not to say I don't already have what I want, but like in a sense of knowing like I'm already doing a lot of what I like. Again, a lot of what I don't like is the monotony, the minutia of owning businesses, right? Mm-hmm. That's the stuff I want to get off my plate. But when I look at it in a 10-year time domain, like I really just truly see myself in a position where I still want to become a bigger brand. I think that always resonated with me. Like I have a desire to be known, not for the sake of having any desire to be famous or anything like that, but I just would like to be a figurehead that people could, like the figurehead, like I talked about, like I respected like business people and people that I look up to that now are in my phone book and stuff like that. Be that for other people, because not to say that I'm a higher or above, but just being like, for the people that are looking to buy their first house or looking to get into real estate investing, that like I'm able to provide them or give them a vision that they're able to do something when everyone else around them is saying that they can't. So it's like being the light in the darkness for them for some of this stuff on just the becoming a new real estate investor, but then also not exiting the company. Again, I'll always enjoy helping people. I'll always enjoy presenting and talking about this stuff. I could talk about this stuff for hours. So I would always want to continue to do that. But where I see myself is being at a point where I'm a lot out of the hustle, not really dealing with the minutia of the day-to-day with the businesses and stuff, and having more of a team behind me and everything like that. That's always, I think, something that we all want as entrepreneurs. Well, at the same time, is because we do it for freedom, and then we realize that we escape. Like in my case, you escape your 9 to 5, and then you work like 24/7, and you're like, well, this isn't what I want either. So there's a life cycle to it. And I think I'm definitely in the hustler part of the life cycle right now. I definitely do a lot more than I should. So this year has been a really pivotal time for me to start to, not that I hate the word scale, but I think it gets thrown around a lot, but like just grow in a way that is going to be organic. That I've been growing so organic for so long. I want to continue that organic growth. I don't want to try to reinvent the wheel or think that I'm going to be able to do something overnight. But I think the next phase of this, now that I have less distractions and stuff like that, is to organically grow into a true business. You know what I mean? Like true business models where, I can be more of a CEO and less of a hustler. So on the 10-year plan, it's like being in a CEO type of situation where right now, I'll be honest, I don't have the luxury of leaving my business and things just being fine for 2 weeks. I don't have that. I'd like to hopefully well before 10 years, but the idea is be at a point where businesses can run, and my vision and the stuff that happens behind me can run while if I have to take 2 weeks off or do something with my family, that it still is a machine and still running.
So good. So good. So to wrap up here, what advice would you have for someone who is an entrepreneur and they're thinking about, hey, I think I have this really cool thing I'm really passionate about, and I want to get it out to the masses. I want to start creating a digital presence. What would be like the top 3 pieces of advice that you would have?
Yeah. So the first one is just like answer questions that are being asked in the space. And there's so many different, this is not anything new or exciting, but this is definitely how I grew my way into it. But look for specific questions that are being asked and create content on the specific questions that are being asked. And it's niche down as hard as you can. I'm an example of niching too much. Not even niching too much, but being like to the point of a blue ocean thing. Like I'm in such a blue ocean that it's hard because like I'm answering questions for 4 people. But those 4 people I nail. So there's good things and bad things of it. It makes scaling hard or growing hard, but it's also helped this business be successful quickly. I'm finding exact things and questions that need to be answered, and I'm answering them. A super simple thing is like with YouTube, like what's cool about it is owned by Google, right? The 2 biggest search platforms in the world are Google and YouTube, which of course are owned by each other. So what's cool is rather than having to buy a website and do SEO and all this stuff to try to rank your stuff, you could just quickly make a video on that topic. And then on whatever that exact question is, someone asked like, how do I do a 203K loan? I can literally make a video, how to do a 203K loan, and it'll rank immediately up. I don't have to create a whole team and do all this crazy stuff to do that. So a great way is just do some market research and just see don't make a video if you are a real estate agent, like how to buy a house. Like that's not a good, like you have to get really specific on how to buy a 2-family home in Ohio, right? There's people out there probably Googling that. Now, maybe there's 200 people that Google it, but to my point before, like at least you're nailing all 200 people that Google that every month. They're going directly to you. So now you're the major face. The second thing I would say is just like when people say I had someone ask me not long ago, they're like, what social media should I post on? I'm like, the one you stick with. There is no good answer. TikTok's great. YouTube's great. Again, I say to myself, I wish if I could go back time, I would do YouTube, but I know me and I know I wouldn't stick with it. Like I actually tried it in the beginning and I stuck with it for a week, but Instagram I stuck with. So find whatever you like we said before, like with the atomic habits thing, like if you could link it to something you're already doing, like you have to create a habit around it. There's no way around that. If it's going to feel like work, it's going to get difficult. You're going to run out of stuff to talk about. And that's going to lead me to my third thing, which is when you do start doing it for a while and you run out of stuff to quote unquote talk about, you have to remember and realize that one of the biggest things is you're going to become your own worst enemy with making content. And I deal with this constantly these days now. And it's like, you think you need to come up with something new and exciting and sexy, and realize that just know that 99% of the people that you're creating content for normally never see you. They're going about their day. They're going about their lives. More about you are listening to yourself in your head all day, but they're not. So there is no problem like making the same stuff, answering the same question over and over and over again. Yeah, you could spin it in different ways, but sometimes you don't even need to spin it in different ways. Just go up and answer the same question again, make content about it, make another YouTube video about it. Like, you're going to get really tired on your own stuff well before no one's going to get tired. No one will ever get tired of your stuff, because there's always going to be new blood finding you. So just remember that, yeah, you're going to have some followers and stuff, but even your followers that have been following you forever, it's crazy. I have some people like in my database and people that I've worked with that have literally like been following me since the inception. And it's like crazy to think someone's been watching my life for 8 years, but they're still liking and commenting and sharing. And I still put out the same trainings, and they're still like, wow, I learned about this. And it's like, how did you not know about that if you've been watching me forever? But again, they're not watching every single thing, and they never will. So don't be afraid to say the same thing over and over again, because they're going to learn as they go.
Yeah, that's such a good point. It reminds me of the recording artists that have their catalog of like maybe 12 songs that everyone knows. I am sure they are so sick of singing those same.
I think about that. Like,
songs.
does Billy Joel, how many times has Billy Joel sung Piano Man? And he still has to go out there and put bells on and smile. And like, there was no way I would want to do it. But you look at it and that's a great point, Kendall. Like, people like to hear the same song over and over again, and I hope they don't hate performing it, right, for their sake, but so I'm sure they do. They're like, oh, but the crowd came, they paid all this money, they want to see Piano Man.
That's it.
So you have to play Piano Man, even though you've played it 1,000 million, in his case, hundreds of thousands of times.
Yeah. And think of all the people that like are going to discover Piano Man for the first time this year and love it all over again. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's a great point.
I love that. If you could go back and give yourself 2 pieces of advice when you were first starting this journey, what would they be?
Oh man, what's funny, because I've thought a lot about this, and I think I'm maturing in knowing that when you're in your 20s, you want everything to happen immediately. And now I'm in my 30s, I'm realizing like things don't need to happen immediately. And even if I could turn back time and try to do things faster or better, like I wouldn't be who I am today. And who I am today is someone I am happy with. You know what I mean? I'm not far from perfect. I never want to be perfect. I'm not trying to be perfect, but like the journey is so important. And I think what I would tell myself is just be patient and not know that things will happen in their own perfect time and in their own perfect way. And it time and time again, I talked about that lender example, it just came at the right time when I needed it. This house that we renovated, we were looking for houses forever, and this just popped up in like the perfect time when we needed it. And stuff that happens in my business, and I've seen it happen where you don't know where to turn with the business, and things aren't going the way you want, and then things just happen. I think it's just trusting the process and really being patient first and foremost, not rushing it. Again, we could all Monday morning quarterback and think of ways that we could do things better and different and faster and everything like that. But I think the contrarian way, like I said, I'm the contrarian, the way to look at it is like, how about not speeding things up? How about riding the wave and as long as your intention's there and you're not like slacking, which none of us are, it will come. It will come. It's never going to come as fast as you want it to, of course.
Right.
If it did, we'd all be walking around with billions of dollars in our pocket. But just knowing that like it will, and you just trust the process. I think that's the first one. The second one would be just to time and time again, as the analysis paralysis junkie, and again, this is who I am as a person. So it's like even telling me to like just rewire my brain, which is not easy. But man, oh man, like just start before you're ready on like literally anything and everything. It's never very rarely, if ever, steered me wrong. There's never been a situation where I started too early on something and then got in a dire situation. You know what I mean? It's never been the case. Like nothing, like that's the thing we fear. And it's never, at least in my case, never been that if I did something too abruptly or took action on something. We're talking about like business stuff. I'm not talking about don't like make brash decisions. Oh, I'm going to drink and drive tonight. Don't do that. But it's like making like quick decisions on like things you want to take action on and things that are good for you. And just knowing you're never going to be 100% ready. You're never even going to be 50% ready. Do it when you're 40% ready. And do that more. Because I still to this day suffer from that, but I need to do that more. And I continue to need to do it more. And if I could tell my younger self, hey, do that more earlier, do more of that. That would definitely get me further faster.
Yeah. Yeah. That's such a good point. I love both of those points. I've heard it said that opportunity is always all around us. It just depends on if we are the type of person, if we're the version of ourselves that's ready to act on that opportunity.
Yeah.
And so I love that. Trust the process, trust the journey, and take action before you're ready. Because ready is a lie, right? Ready is a lie.
You're never ready.
You're never ready. You're never 100% ready. So good.
Yep.
Matt, thank you so much for joining us and just sharing so much information with us and just being so generous. How can we give back to you right now? What types of connections or resources are you looking for?
Sure. I'm trying to build my YouTube channel. So the whole thing of I didn't do YouTube all these years later, I'm trying to pick it up now. I'm at Matt Porcaro on YouTube or the 203K way at the 203K, the 203K way on socials. Just help spread the message. If it's something for a lot of real estate investors and stuff, like they'll be like, oh, this doesn't work for me. I'm not you don't even have to be a first time home buyer, but I'm not looking to move into a property. Here's the thing. I'm sure somebody that is. I'm sure there's someone that's looking for a house or looking for their next house. So share that and subscribe to my YouTube channel and help me on that journey. I'm trying. I'm not good at it. But again, I'm going to trust the process and learn by doing. In the little bit I have done with it, I've been blown away by the results of just like how fun it is over there. Like when you actually do put it in. But again, it's so daunting that every time I go to strap it back on, I'm like, here we go again. I got to do it. But again, trusting the process and like being in before you're ready, like realizing these videos aren't going to be perfect. I got so stuck on that. Like I just do trainings on my laptop. I really barely edit it and I throw it up. And I've had a bunch of videos that hit really well, got a lot of comments, had a lot of people reach out because of it. And like, it took me 5 minutes. And here all this whole time I thought I needed perfect camera systems and microphones and everything like that. Just
so
spread
good.
the message.
I love it. We will put all of those links and handles in the show notes. So Thank you so much. This has been absolutely incredible. And looking forward to seeing all that grow on YouTube. I'll be following for sure.
Thanks, Kendall. I appreciate you.
All right, man. Take care. Catch you next time.
Cool.
Hey there, brand fan. If these insider strategies on building influence and cultivating real community got your wheels turning, like and subscribe for more conversations that cut through the noise and get to what really works. And if you're ready to turn these insights into action, head over to onlybrandfans.com to unlock the next level. Until next time, build something they can't ignore.